but I'm learning, and we're married 19 years now, and I'm still learning about myself
But
and
definitely.
just and getting better.
And I
And
think that's so good that you say that, Shay, because we call it the recovery. Like it used to
Mhm.
take us 4 or 5 days to recover, right? It would
No,
take, I
no,
mean,
never. It took you.
it took me about a good 4 or 5 days. But it would be, we would always say, we don't want to go to bed angry. I'm like, well, I'm not angry, I'm upset. So that's different, right? But then we started our recovery as we've grown in marriage. Our recovery is we say something we might be at odds, but it's like such a much faster turnaround. We're not stuck in that place where we don't want to talk or we're upset or whatever the case may be. So I think that's important and it shows growth.
Hey, family, this is Che Willis coming back with another episode of Wealth is a Journey podcast. Guys, this is episode 91.
Yeah.
91 weeks of consistency, 91 weeks of getting it done. Guys, we are in for a special treat. But before we start, if you are a first time listener, watcher, or subscriber, thank you so much for tuning in. On this podcast, we talk about faith, family, and finances, among other things. If you are a return listener, watcher, or subscriber, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully, we are adding value to your lives on the way to the M's. Because as always, we are on our way to the M's. So this is a special start of a series that we're doing. We did it many months ago. Is a marriage series because I feel like on your way to the M's, you need your spouse on board if you're married. You need your spouse on board and help you grow, help your family grow, and things of that nature. So, some of my rich friends on here on the
Here we
podcast
go.
today.
Here we go.
We have Stephanie and Derrick Weston. Let's go. Stephanie and Derrick Weston, man. These two are very special to me. I talked about on the podcast before many times that I prayed for good friends, good connections, and God brought Derek into my life, and he brought Stephanie along too. I didn't really ask for her. However, however, she's here and she is my sister. So if you wouldn't
Brother.
mind just introducing yourselves real quick, and then we'll go ahead and get into it.
Sure, come.
I'm Derrick Weston.
And I'm Stephanie Weston.
Yes. Thank you. That was a real deep intro. I appreciate that. Thank you. Derek has been on this podcast so long ago, man. I was just looking back in the archives. Episode 18, we did a father series. And we were talking about dads and how how important dads were. And I figured that it would be so important for them to come together and bring us so many gems and nuggets because they've been married for how long now?
25 years this year,
Man,
25 years this year.
God bless you, Derek. God bless you, brother.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yes,
really sure how you
awesome.
did it this long, but God is
Hmm. He is good. He is good.
so
We gotta pray some friends away after this podcast. Pastor's
Oh
doing a
man.
series at Siege Church on friends. I'm getting ready to reevaluate some friendships here.
Oh man, nah, these are my people, man. I love them so much, man. They are very important to me, and I thought it would be fitting to have them on the podcast. So, guys, where did you guys grow up? Stephanie, you can start first.
I grew up in Philadelphia, in North Philadelphia as a child, and then I moved to Mount Airy when I was about 10
Mm,
and went to Northeast High School, Hail Northeast, and I went to Widener University.
okay, and Derek,
I
for the
grew up
people
in
who don't
North
know you,
Philly.
you
Pardon
said
me?
what?
For the people in the back that don't know you.
Yeah, for the people that don't know who you are, you've been on here before.
I grew up in North Philly, born and raised. Went to Dobbins Tech, Mustangs. Um, College, North Philly streets.
North Philly University.
Went to the school of
North
hard
Philly
knocks.
University.
Hard
Exactly.
knocks to life.
Exactly.
That's what's
Yeah,
up. So why don't you guys tell me? I know there's always different stories of how y'all met and who wanted who first and all that
sure.
stuff. So
mhm.
how did Stephanie, in your recollection, how did you guys meet?
My recollection, which all the wives that are going to be watching this are going to agree that our recollection is always the correct recollection because we're very close to the Holy Spirit who reminds us of
Word.
things.
Okay.
But no, I met Derrick. I was 21 years old and I worked in Center City at the time. And I saw him on the train because he's a train engineer. And I approached him at Broad and Olney and said, "You are a very handsome man." That's how we met.
Mm.
Do you agree?
Yeah, so far.
Okay, he asked how we met. He didn't ask about
Yeah.
none of the other details. That's how we met. We agree on
Okay.
that. See, 25 years later, we agree.
That. Go ahead.
My
Go ahead, Derek.
version?
Yeah, your version, please.
Yeah. I'm a train engineer. I was operating the Eighth and Market train, and the end of the stop of that line is either Eighth and Market or Broad and Olney,
Mhm.
where she said she met me at. However, when you pull into Eighth and Market,
Here we go.
when you pull into Eighth and Market, the train, you get off the train for the train to go back the opposite way.
Mhm.
So when I
Oh,
pulled in,
sorry. Yep.
I seen this young lady sitting on a bench with
Mhm.
these Mickey Mouse socks on.
Chase, should I go get my socks? Because I still got them.
No, we don't need the socks. Derek's telling the story. Go ahead. Continue,
I got
sir.
off the train and she said hello. I said hello back to her. I went and took my break. When I came back out to get on the train to take the train back up the opposite way, she was sitting behind the seat of where I operate the train at.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that was the first interaction. When I got off the train, she spoke to me with a big smile.
Wow. So she was being she was being a little
Fast. Is that what you're
little
saying?
That's what I was gonna say, but I didn't want to put you out there. But you was was you
First of all, disclaimer. Anybody that rode a train in Philadelphia on Market Street or Broad Street line knows how when you get on the train at the beginning of the station, the seat behind the operator is the only one person seat. So if you want to be by yourself and not have any riffraff sitting next to you, you always go to that seat. So for him to say that I just sat there because I was like stalking him or whatever the case may be, I was in the hot seat. Anybody that rode the train knows that that's accurate information that I just gave you.
okay?
Also known as the hot seat.
The fast seat.
There's
Yeah.
one on the bus and there's one on the train.
That is crazy. So let me ask you this: how long did it take? I know y'all were dating for I don't know how long, but how long were y'all dating before you said, you know what, I need to marry this
We just had this conversation.
We did.
2 years?
2 years, too.
About 2 years.
woman?
Yeah, about 2 years.
And were you the first of your friends to get married, or were there other married people in your circle?
No, I wasn't the first.
So
You weren't the
so
first? You were the first. In your circle? Yeah, think about it. Hensley got married after you. Andrew got married after you. Meyer was divorced.
No, what's the name? Maurice.
Maurice who?
Maurice McCall, my friend that
We went to their wedding.
we did.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
This is marriage in real life, guys. This is marriage in real life. So
Yeah,
if you were on the fence about getting married, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Go ahead and do it. It is worth it. It is worth it.
Yeah. But it had nothing to do with them, but yeah.
Yeah, what?
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying me proposing to Stephanie didn't have anything to do with my other friends that weren't married or was married.
So why'd you marry me?
Because I love you with that big smile.
Aw.
Aw.
Aw. That's so sweet. So what was the thing that Derek, because I'm sure, I mean, you were pretty Ricky is what I used to call you, back in the day. and I'm
He
sure other
was
people
pretty
called you.
Ricky.
Yeah, Pretty Ricky. He had the curly hair and all that stuff. Like
Yeah,
it's crazy,
with
man.
taco meat right here
Yeah,
with his
yeah.
Jesus cross hanging down on it. I
Got you,
remember.
right?
This dude, he's a good looking man. So my thing is, what was the thing that said I need to marry Stephanie?
I evaluated the other women that was in my life
Mm-hmm.
and decided that, well, knew that she was the right one that was going to stick with me through thick and thin.
Mm.
I like that. Good. You getting some yam points. I see you. Look, the twinkle in her eye. I can see it through the glasses. She's ready to go now.
Anyway,
So Stephanie, what was the thing that Derrick did, or maybe some attributes that said, you know what, I think he could be my husband?
I mean, Derrick was, first of all, there's a 10-year age difference between us.
Mm-hmm.
So at 21, I still was pretty, pretty young. I mean, I had a steady job and I was stable and all those things. And I really didn't have a lot of relationships at that time. Like I grew up and I was kind of sheltered and, in church and didn't really have like a lot of experience, I'll say. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I saw Derrick and I met him, like he was gainfully employed, right? Like he was very mature. He was a lot more mature than a 21-year-old guy, that I would have been dealing with.
Sure.
And he was one of the things I think when I learned when we were dating is that he was a gentleman, which I thought was so interesting to me. Like I grew up with my dad, so I had a father. I had, fatherly affection. But Derrick would open the door for me. He would walk on the opposite side when we were walking down the street. Like he took a lot of things. He would take his hat off when he came into my house, and there were just a lot of things about him. He smelled good all the time. Like I swear his skin must smell like whatever cologne he uses. And so it was like all of those things attracted me to him because I just felt like he was manly. Like this person would take care of me. I felt safe with him.
Why are you looking at me like that?
That's good.
No, you can't just look like yeah, really.
No. Bro, I'm picking you up. This is good. I'm taking notes here.
Okay, all right.
I'm taking notes, bro. This is good, man. So we talked about the flowery things. We talked about the rosy things. Do you remember your first spat as a married couple?
Oh, as a married couple.
No. We talking about marriage here.
Our first spat. Yeah, I mean, I think full disclosure.
Teach you how to drive?
No, that was not a spat. Anyway, I think full disclosure, we had a lot. We just were talking about this with our youngest son last night, and we had a lot of circumstances and situations that occurred prior to us getting married, during the first year of our marriage, and beyond. That I think what a typical couple goes through in that first 1 or 2 years, we bypassed that hundreds and hundreds of miles. So because we entered into our relationship as a blended family.
Got it.
And so having, children outside of the two of us, those relationships with their mother, right? And all of those things that made our first year pretty hellish, if I'm honest. Like, I really think that Derrick, Evan said, Daddy, you had a lot of stress in that first, like 1998, 1999. It was like, ooh, right? So yeah. I think we fought because I was very insecure. I can own my insecurity. And I was insecure, I was immature, but I was also hurt. And so I think that was a recipe, not being able to really get through, being hurt, being immature, and being insecure. I think I played a good portion of why we struggled, especially in the beginning of our marriage.
Ooh, let's listen, man. We're gonna stay right here for a second. Yeah, I think it's big for women to admit when they're wrong. Doesn't happen often. And look I can tell by Derrick's face, like this, like bro. No, Derrick, I'm right with you, bro. I'm right with you. So that's big. So what what was the thing that made you come to the realization, like, yo, maybe I'm bugging and maybe I need to chill? Like, what happened?
I think for me, and not to get like spiritual and deep about it, but I think when I really decided to forgive Derrick, that forgiveness freed me of a lot of things. And it wasn't the answer to everything, right? But it was the starting base because he hurt me, and being hurt allowed me to kind of stay in my feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And so by me being hurt, I felt justified to feel the way that I was feeling, to act the way that I was acting, and all those things. But when I forgave him and really genuinely said, I forgive this person, I'm gonna move past it, I'm not gonna get stuck there. I think at that point is when I stopped throwing the past up in our arguments, because that's what people have a tendency to do, is throw something that happened last year or last week into a new argument and just kind of keep snowballing the effect of it. So being able to forgive and be very intentional. Someone told us, I think in our counseling, like, if you're going to forgive, you got to fight fair, and you're not going to be able to bring back up what you forgave.
Sure. No, that's good. That's really good. And Derrick, my question to you in that same lane is, like, you say you're sorry and you take the steps to show that you're sorry, but then she's acting a way that was like, you know what, I'm going to continue to treat you mean because you hurt me. What was the thing that made you say, I'm going to stay? Because realistically, you were sorry. I'm assuming you showed how sorry you were, and then she still treated you away. What made you stay? Because I'm sure you were new in your marriage, right? Like, if marriage is new to you, boyfriend, girlfriend, like you're a year or two out and then something happens, and like, well, boyfriend, girlfriend stuff, I'm leaving. I'm out. Like, I don't have to stay here and deal with this. So what made you stay?
Honestly, I can't, for some reason, I don't remember you being angry with me or treating me bad or just arguing with me. I don't recall that. Um, what made me stay um, is I realized I hurt her. When I hurt her, I realized that I loved her, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And I have three kids outside of our marriage, twin boys and a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And during the first year of the first 2 years, it was really hard. And it was like I was working, I was coming home after dealing with my daughter's mother and then dealing with my twins' mother, and then coming home, not necessarily dealing with Stephanie, but it was like it was really a lot of stress.
Sure.
And what made me what made me say, "Hey, I'm here," is I was dealing with. We were married. I was dealing with my daughters and my son's mother. It was me dealing with that as if that was my problem. But until I said, "Hey," I allowed Stephanie to. I realized and I allowed Stephanie to come in and say, "Hey, we're married. This isn't my problem. This is our problem." And when I allowed her to help me with this, that's what made it, "Hey, I'm staying." And it made it so much easier, because now it wasn't me against the three of them. It was Stephanie and I against them. And not necessarily, I
I
don't
know
want
what
to
you mean.
be against it, but
Yeah.
we were dealing with it as one. Yeah, we were one unit dealing with this situation.
Sure.
And
And
that's
how
what
did?
made me say,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what made me say, "Hey, she's the one."
Okay. And then how did you overcome that, Stephanie, and say, hey, it's us, not against them, but us working together to make the situation work?
It's funny that he said he doesn't remember it, because we didn't argue like that. He's absolutely right. But there was resentment in me that
Mhm.
wouldn't allow me to be completely vulnerable to him.
And
Right.
not to get too deep into it, I just want to make sure I'm
Mhm.
clear. the boys and then the young lady, your daughter, happened while you were together, or this happened after or close to?
The,
It
I'm
was
not
like
gonna get too deep
big,
into it.
no, you're not gonna get deep. It's like a big boom. Derrick, when I met him, he had found out about his two sons. So they weren't all the way, they weren't there he wasn't there in the very beginning. He finds out about these two sons. We are in a relationship and we're dealing with that. And there was an indiscretion and his daughter came along. And then, so knowing full well when I walked down that aisle in October that there were these three children, and at that time Miles was here, so there were four children. And so that's where the hurt, the anger, the frustration, all that it's preceded our marriage. And we both made like a very conscious decision, in spite of all of that, to say we're going to do this. We're going to get married.
Yeah. But it ended up working out at the end of the day. Like, so you guys have been
absolutely
married for 25 years. Every time I'm with you guys, you seem to be happy. I don't care what Derrick says when you're not around. Okay. I know you're happy.
Thank you.
Nah, I'm joking.
But we'll talk about that later.
But yeah, we'll talk about it later. Yeah. But I want to know also how important counseling is for a marriage, because I think prior to the pandemic, like, people didn't really talk about counseling a lot unless you were in church or whatever. But how important talking to somebody else about your marriage or your situation is, and how that helped you get through, or to maybe to the other side of making it 25 years.
Yeah. Oh, it was critical. Like it was critical for us. We had premarital counseling, postmarital counseling, after postmarital counseling. Some people that would talk to us.
We had postmarital counseling.
Yeah, but we knew it. I think before we even get into the counseling, I think that you need support. And it's about disarming the pride and saying, hey, I need the support, right? Because although both of us, and I thought about this the other day, both of us came from families that his parents were married, my parents were married. I was adopted, but then my father was married to his first wife and then my second wife. But we came from what would be perceived as an average, normal family. Sure. Yet the way he was raised and the way I was raised was so completely different, right? And then we had different ideologies of what marriage is supposed to look like. And so because we didn't really dig into that like we probably should have prior to getting married, it just opened up a can of worms when we got married. And we made a decision at the very beginning that divorce wasn't an option, right? Like, we're not going to get divorced. I often would joke with him and say that I worked too hard to let you go to somebody else, so I'm gonna have to kill you. So you're gonna get out of this like that.
She was dead serious there. She was so serious.
I'm so serious. But counseling, to go back to your initial point, was important for us. It was counseling, and then it was wise counsel of friends that we also had, right? Mm-hmm. So we were a part of a group in our early part of our marriage, and they were Christians. They were like Christians. We're like, yeah, we're gonna be with the Christians, right? And Hot Mess Express, like, none of them are married. None of them are married. They all got divorced, and it took a little bit of a blow. But then we started being a lot more intentional about who we like linked up with. And so we would look at people and watch them and say, you know what, I like the way their marriage is working. Like, let's talk to them. And we've done that. I mean, ever since we got married, we've sought out people that we respected and that we thought would be really good to be able to be a sounding board. Because at the end of the day, I can't make Derrick understand how I feel, and nor can he make me understand. And I think you have to have somebody there to just be like, well, she said this and he meant that, to be able to hear each other a little bit better. And that's what, counseling allowed us, but also like our circle of friends allowed for us.
And we've been very, very, very transparent with our marriage in hopes to help other people, to say, hey, when you hear if you've got a problem, but when you hear somebody else's problem, you don't really have a problem.
For
Right.
You
sure.
know, exactly.
Right.
And to throw that word divorce up, it's just a cop out in a sense. I feel it is in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Because a lot of times you'll realize that you're the problem. A lot of times, like for me anyway,
Exactly.
when my wife and I first got married, I would think, no, it's her, it's her, it's her. But then when I started, doing some evaluating of myself, I'm like, no, it's you. You're bugging. You need to chill, and things of that nature. So, like, if you do end up leaving that person, you're still taking you with you to
Yeah,
the next person.
That's right.
exactly.
That's
So,
right.
And I always say, Stephanie's a wedding planner, event planner, and
mhm.
she used to have clients that come over when she, interviewed them the first time. And sometimes the husband or the fiance would come over, and I have a little conversation with him. And my advice to him or anybody else is, if you're not willing to compromise, that marriage isn't going to work. And for the most part, you think about it, when you get into an argument with your spouse, are you really compromising? It's or you should have did this, and you're not willing to, be intentional to say, hey, let me step back and you're not that you have to do it all the time,
Yeah.
but if you're not willing to compromise, it's not going to work.
Yeah. No,
It's,
I
it's
agree.
not going to work. You
I agree
know,
100%, man. My wife, my baby, my darling, my sweets pissed me off something crazy on Sunday, and ooh boy. And I was like, you know what? The old Che would have froze her out for like maybe 3-4 days at minimum. Like, nah, we're not talking. I'm cool. And then now, because of the self evaluation and things of that nature, maybe it's 10 hours or 20 hours as opposed to 36 hours, whatever the case may be. But I'm learning, and we're married 19 years now, and I'm still learning about myself, and
definitely.
just and getting better. and
And I
and
think that's so good that you say that, Shay, because we call it the recovery. Like it used to
Mhm.
take us 4 or 5 days to recover, right? It would
No,
take, I
no,
mean,
never. It took you.
it took me about a good 4 or 5 days. But it would be, we would always say, we don't want to go to bed angry. I'm like, well, I'm not angry, I'm upset. So that's different, right? But then we started our recovery as we've grown in marriage. Our recovery is we say something we might be at odds, but it's like such a much faster turnaround. We're not stuck in that place where we don't want to talk or we're upset or whatever the case may be. So I think that's important, and it shows growth.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I agree 100%. And at the end of the day, like, when you really think about it, like, we're not
It ain't that
enemies.
deep. Yeah,
We're
and it's
not we're
not
not
that
like,
deep.
we love each other. Like, come on, man. Let's try to get over this. Here's my point. Here's your point. Okay, listen, we agree to disagree. Let's just move on.
It's funny because remember we had the Let's Make It Work class. I guess it was maybe earlier this year, and I think I've never seen it or thought about it this way. But Pastor did this illustration where him and Sister Lisa were back to back, right? And he
Hmm.
said to her, "Describe what you see," and then she said, "Describe what you see." Now they're standing in the same room, but they have a different perspective. And that's how we can understand that we are not enemies, but we have different perspectives. It doesn't mean that I'm right or he's right, or he's wrong and I'm wrong. It just means that we have a different perspective on how we view something. And that's kind of helping me understand and talk to Derrick as opposed to at Derrick when we don't when we don't necessarily line up. That's
Hmm.
he's got a different perspective than I have. Doesn't mean that he's wrong. It's just different.
Yeah. Woo! Man, that was good, man. That was good. Now, you guys have mentioned, well, first of all, I had mentioned that you guys are my rich friends. And so don't do that. Just don't look at just look at me. Don't look at each other.
Okay.
Y'all already rich. So listen.
We
So
bless.
We receive it. We
Yeah, I
that's
receive
right.
it, but we just bless.
That you blessed and rich. Okay.
Yeah, all right, if
So
you say so.
so my question is, as far as like revolving around finances, everybody does it different. My wife and I, we didn't combine our finances for, I think, the first 10 years of our marriage. And so did you guys combine your stuff, or how did you guys do it? And how did you know to do it the way you did it?
I mean, I'll say this.
Well, you go ahead and say your
Derrick was not on board, right?
Okay,
Because
I wasn't either.
I grew up in church. I grew up tither, an offering giver. Like this is one pot. That's my thought. That was my thought process.
Mm-hmm.
I also was self-sufficient, right? Like I had my own job. I thought I was a contributor, and we just gonna have more money together.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't. Maybe the first year. First year. It only took a year.
Sure.
Because let me tell you why. He had all them kids, and he knew that he needed all this one.
That's crazy. Yo, she's so petty. That's why we get along so well, because me and you are just as petty as we want to be.
No, but seriously, I mean, I did really ask the Lord, because there was so many cracks in our marriage. I didn't want finances to be another crack, right? Because when I say cracks, it's not a bad thing. It just, our foundation was pretty shaky in the beginning because of all the external things. So I just really felt that way. And it's interesting in the evolution of that. So Derrick, I mean, in marriage, this happens all the time. In our marriage, there's been times when I was working and Derrick was not, or Derrick was working and I was not. Like there's been ebbs and flows. Somebody made more, somebody made less. And we've never been in competition with money with each other, right? Yeah. So Derrick is
25 years.
No, we've never, and I can say that with assurance, is like we've never had that as an issue. Primarily because I would try to get into it sometimes, like, oh, let me help you figure out how to do the bills, and let me put it on the Excel spreadsheet. Let me do it this way, right? Derrick has a notebook over there, a loose leaf binder that he's got all his pages in, and he's got pages from 1999 when we first got married.
Go back and tell you that.
They back there. But I trust Derrick, right? Yeah. I implicitly trust him. I trust that the bills are going to get paid. I trust that I'm going to have a car. I'm going to have lights. I'm going to have food. And I have always trusted him. I've always trusted that he is managing our finances the way that they need to be managed.
What's going on, family? This is Che Willis from Wealth is a Journey. Did you know that we just started a wealth building community? In this community, we meet once a month on Zoom. We discuss financial areas of opportunity. We discuss wins and strategies to get you to the M's. In anybody's wealth building journey, if you're just starting out, it can be super lonely and difficult. In this community, we're also going to hold you accountable to where you say you want to be. So if you need the accountability, if you need the family atmosphere, if you need help getting to your desired financial result, come join the community. My website is www.wealthisajourney.com. Join the community today to get to your financial result. Thank you.
Yeah. In the beginning, like she said, although I had these kids, I was making more money than her.
Sure.
And I was like working this overtime, and she came to me. Yeah. We were like, well, we need to combine our finances. And I'm like, combine our finances.
That's the face he gave me. That's thinking.
Yeah, I can see it.
And she was like, that's going to cause division in our relationship and this and that. But as time went on, we combined them, and it made it so much easier. We had a checking account, a savings account. She had her own checking and savings account. I had mine after she got her allowance. I got our allowance. So, and that's how we work things. And it's been like that ever since. And now, our finances is still combined. She still get her allowance. I don't get her allowance, but all the bills is taken care of. But we never wanted for anything. Well, within the past couple of years, we've been blessed.
But we struggle. We struggle.
Yeah, let's just say we haven't had a need for anything.
Yeah, we don't need anything. But in our beginning of our marriage, even in that, I mean, a lot of people say, oh, you and Derrick do this. Y'all always traveling. You're always doing this. Like you drive this car, you have this house, but nothing happens just from one time to the next.
That's a fact.
It was like year after year.
Some stories.
We would, we love traveling. Like that's something that we really enjoy. But when we first got married and we have 5 kids, we can't go to Europe and travel. Like we didn't do that. Like we would go to the Poconos or we would go to Stockton, New Jersey at a bed and breakfast for the weekend. Right. And so because I think we were diligent in being good stewards of our marriage, our family, we didn't always get our finances right all the time, but whenever we got off course, we try to get back on course. I think that now we live in that season where we can enjoy each other because we did all the things that we needed to do, and we are in a different season now. And I think that's really important in marriage, that when you first get married, don't think that you're going to be with how your 10-year or 20-year friends are living, because that's just not the reality of it.
That's a fact. Yeah. And one thing I will mention, I don't know if my wife and I told y'all, but I think we did, but I'm gonna tell the audience. When we first joined the family, the friend group that we're now part of. Yes. Circle of love. Yes.
Circle of love.
When we first joined, I'm like, fam, like we really got to step our game up as far as like, because we saw what y'all were doing, y'all taking nice trips and doing nice things or whatever, and we did nice stuff, but I felt like y'all like really took it to another level. Like, so I'm like, yo, we really got to get our money up, man. I just wanted to tell y'all that was it, because y'all really do it. Y'all really do it. But my question is based off of that is, how did you know to combine the finance? How did you know that was the right thing to do? Because I think that our generation is probably the last generation who doesn't know now about finances. Like I feel like we're in the information age. Everybody knows about finances now. Now, whether they do the right things with the finances, that's a whole nother story. But we know our parents never talked about money. You knew that you couldn't have things, and that's how you knew that you really didn't have money. A lot of times, like you ask your mom for something when you go to the supermarket. Now you can't get that. Okay, cool. We don't have no money, whatever the case may be. So, how did you know that was the right thing to do?
For me, I go back to our marriage vows, and even back to that first year, when I decided to say, "Hey, Stephanie, would you marry me? Become one." Being married is, you're doing life with someone.
Sure.
And that's how I value my marriage. I'm doing life with Stephanie. We're doing it together. So if we're doing life together, why not have our finances together? And having our finances together is so much easier, especially with that trust. I mean, we've been doing this for 25 years with our finances together. And she never went without. She'll go to the store, and first thing she'll do is go to the clearance rack. You don't have to go to the clearance rack all the time. I mean, if that's what you want to do, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
She get her allowance, she get her eyes done, her hair done, her nails done, her feet done, and so forth.
Yeah.
But that's her money.
Sure.
But then she still sometimes, take her money and buy food for the house, which is still separate, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
But she never, never want. Hey, go do something. Go with your girlfriends, this and that. But
yeah, and he's been that way. For me, I knew that it was the right thing inertly because of just from biblical teaching, right? And I know that it doesn't say in the Bible, take your money and put your money together, but I really thought that being one would mean everything is one, whether it's sex, whether it's emotions, whether it's finances, like any opportunity that the devil has to get a stronghold into your marriage, he will. And I think that the area of finance is one of the biggest areas that he can get a stronghold in. And because we did it that way, it was a conscious decision, and I was totally 100% fine. Derrick may have struggled, but he came in, I guess, in alignment with what the word says. And so we were being one and we got it. But even after doing that, Che, like throughout our marriage, there had been so many different opportunities where God has where he showed up and showed himself faithful, because of that area wasn't an area that we struggled in, right? Yep. And when I never forget, I was pregnant with Evan, and I lost my job. I was laid off and I was pregnant. I was like, how can I be pregnant and laid off? Like, that's got to be against the law. And that Sunday, I got laid off on a Monday. On that Sunday, we had committed that we were going to pay our tithes in its entirety, not like an offering, but a tithe. Mm-hmm. And I remember, right, we wrote a check out for $1,400, and like that was big faith, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You want 10%?
It made me itch a little bit. I'm like, whoa.
and I was like,
and that was back.
Yeah, that was 20 years ago, right? And I was just like, ooh, I don't know if we could do this, right? But we did it, and we were so happy. So when we hear the scripture, be a cheerful, prompt to do, a giver whose heart is in his giving. I didn't know that scripture meant that then, but that's how we felt. So we were excited. Like, we gave our tithes. I go into work Monday, you're laid off. My first thought was, I got to call him and tell him to pause that check because I need that money now, right?
Yeah.
But how God showed up for us was they came back and said, yes, we are laying you off, but here is your next check. So that was blessing number one. I had just gotten paid on Friday. They gave me another 2-week check. And then they said, and here is some money, severance package for you. Now, I had only been working for the company for about less than a year, so I wasn't even entitled to any kind of severance.
Wow.
And when you added up my check and what they gave me, it was $14,000.
That's crazy. And that was back then.
It was 100, but it was the 14,000. No, it was 17,000. 17,000. And the first thing that hit me was God said that I will increase you. You trust me, and I will increase you tenfold, hundredfold, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, Derrick, we got all of the money back, right? Like in my mind, thinking that. And it was just one time after another that he showed up, that because we are in agreement. And that's the other word I wanted to say. You can do it, but you got to be in agreement. So even if you're putting your finances together and one person is like, I really don't want to do this, right? God's not going to bless that. But if you are in agreement with one another that this is what we're doing and we're doing this together and we've got a goal and we got this, I might not know the password to the Delmarva. I just know it gets paid, right? I probably should be a little more informed, but that's where I trust Derrick.
Sure.
But that's where God blesses. I think that it's the power of agreement in your finances, what you really can see, God blessing it.
That's huge, man. Golly. Yeah, there's many stories, man, where you're a good steward over your finances, you're doing the right things, you're doing scriptural things with your finances by giving back to God, and he just dumps blessing on top of you. Like it's crazy. So now listen, man, we gonna shift to these babies, man, these kids.
These kids.
Because the people need to know about the kids, man. They need to know about how to parent, man. I think parent is so hard, man. I feel like it's hard. It can be hard on your marriage based on your relationship with each parent's relationship with the kid. Because one is a friend, the other is a disciplinarian, and like to find that balance between like how to do parenting. So my question is, who's the parent, who's the disciplinarian, and who's the friend? Which one of y'all?
I'm not even disciplinary. I'm here.
You just here so you don't get fined.
You might want to edit this part.
No, you won't. Before we answer that question, I think that this was the thing that we didn't do in the beginning that we would give advice to people that are getting married should do. And that is talk about your parenting style, right? Okay. Before you get married, because a lot of times we bring in our style from how we were raised into the marriage. And it's not until there's a challenge or a situation and one person wants to handle it this way and the other person wants to handle it that way. And that's where I believe a lot of conflicts come into place.
Sure.
And then talking about your past, like how were you raised? What did you not like about how you were raised? What bothered you? What is your trigger? So I didn't like to be yelled at, right? So my parents were like yellers. My dad would yell sometimes, but he would also be silent. Like he would just ignore, right? And so for me, when Derrick did that to me, it immediately put me into like this space. No, you didn't yell, but you would ignore me. Yeah. Okay. So he would
just ignore her. Go ahead, Stephanie. Continue, please.
he would do that, but then when it came to our children, when I saw attributes of my father and how my father dealt with me, I then became overly protective of our children, and they're our children. But because of my past and my trauma and my issues, I wasn't able to, at times, allow Derrick to parent and father the way that he felt was best, because I was always like kind of protecting. And in the same token, if I'm honest, Derrick's
I'm
parents.
I'm just glad you realizing that now.
Oh. Derrick's parents, although I didn't get a chance to meet them, because they had both, went to heaven before we got married. He didn't have the affection and the softer side, right? Like his father was a drill sergeant in the Army. So like, this is how it is, right? Yeah. So I think because if we would have taken 2 steps back when we were dating and sitting at the Phillips at Baltimore on one of our dates and talked about, hey, how were you raised? And like, what if our kid came in late? How would you handle it? How would I handle it? Like, how would we do this? I think we could have avoided and at least prepared ourselves a bit better for the pitfalls that happen as young kids, as teenagers, because we were in conflict because of how we were raised and we never really had a parenting plan. And I think that everybody needs to kind of come up with a parenting plan for yourself, for your own family.
Yeah. Wow. You said a lot. You said a whole lot.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No. Don't be sorry. This is really, really good. Because the disagreement that my wife and I had was over that, and thinking back to when we were kids, a lot of that was the issue, the root of the issue. And I'm not going to get into it. I'm gonna wait till she gets on here, and then we can talk about it, what happened or whatever. But I feel like like you said, it's a lot of childhood trauma, like how we were raised and the things that we saw that triggered us to make us act or react in defense of our kids. Mm-hmm. And because I feel like a lot of times we're shielding our kids from different things that we went through, and we don't want them to feel like we felt.
Exactly.
But I think we don't give ourselves credit. I'm sorry. I don't think we give ourselves credit. And this is where we need to give ourselves grace as parents, right?
Yeah.
We aren't our parents.
Yeah.
Because we are cognizant and aware of some of the things that were done that we don't want to do. So inertly, we are just always thinking about how to be better, how to do better for our children. Mm. But then the overprotection or the coddling or the babying, just mask itself into that. And we don't intend to do it, right? Yeah. But being a person who was abused as a child, physically, sexually, emotionally, my children, when they came out of and being adopted, right? So like I had this perfect storm of wanting to not be rejected. I never wanted my kids to ever feel rejection, not realizing that it's not even them. It's me. It's my stuff. It's my stuff on them. And now I am enabling them, or I'm enabling them to be who they are because I'm afraid of what I went through, and I'm putting that on them where I haven't even put them in an environment to experience anything that I experienced.
Wow. And not knowing that, me raising them the way that I raised them, I've always been intentional with my boys. Yeah. As we go back to that 18th season, when I talked about being intentional with them, because I'm preparing boys to leave the house.
Sure.
And sometimes the interference of Stephanie, when I'm trying to raise them, her interference in the sense of cuddling them, it's an interference.
Sure.
And sometimes I found myself shutting down.
Yeah.
Instead of coming together, because there's a hard side and a soft side, right? Sure. If you're raised and you never experience love and affection and it's not normal.
I experienced it, but not.
Yeah. Right. It was different. I mean, you knew your parents loved you, but it may not have been the way that I experienced it. And because we didn't talk about that, when he did something, I feel like I got to protect them. When I do something, he feels like I'm babying them, and he doesn't see it as me protecting them from what I've been afraid of versus it. And then it becomes this fight.
Yeah.
And I can say, in all honesty, over 25 years of marriage, 98% of our fights have been about our kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I
We're
would
not
say,
putting
go
the
ahead.
cap on the toothpaste.
Don't you start.
I mean, it was an argument.
Yeah, no, and this is real, and this is why we're having this conversation, because I'm sure this is going to help somebody, because I'm sure this is going to resonate with somebody else that's going through the same thing. And
Especially before you get married.
You know what?
Well, when I say before you get married, you need to have this conversation
Yeah.
before you have kids,
Before you have
get
kids.
exactly.
Yes. Because when you have them, it's like you said, kids don't come with a book, right?
Yeah.
And you again are raising your children and having these conversations the way that you were raised, and you're marrying somebody who was not raised in your same family, same house, same whatever. And that is a recipe for disaster if you don't really have an in-depth conversation about that.
Like, you don't spank, no, I do time out.
Yeah, you don't yell, I yell. You don't do this, but again,
you want to listen to them.
You have two perspectives, and then you sit down and you say, you know what, let's create a parenting plan. When we have kids, if this happens, this is how we're going to handle it. Because now you've talked about it and you have a plan, so you're not going to fail, right? I mean, you might go make some.
Yeah, you might have some stumbles, but yeah,
they'll take you there. Kids will take you there, but.
And that thing, kids plan parents against each other. If you don't have that plan, they'll play you. But if you have that plan, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
And I feel like I need to say this as far as like with men anyway, that from a male perspective or female looking at a male perspective, there are kids too, and we're not going to intentionally hurt them. Now, if the person's being malicious, that's another thing. But if you see that Derrick had the attributes of a gentleman and he had the attributes of somebody who you will want to marry,
right.
Yeah,
he's instilling in them the things that he knew that made him successful to be the person he is today. Is that
100%? I 100% agree with you, and I will say, from a woman's perspective, the things that Derrick loved about me, from a spiritual perspective, my softness, the love, the tenderness, that's why he married me. So a child needs both of those things.
For sure.
Right. So I think that's where we fought each other so much about, what you're giving and how you're doing it, and this is what they need. And I'm like, I'm doing the same thing, not realizing that we're creating a person, like we are raising a person that needs to have both of these sides. Yeah. Like both of these are valid points. Both of them are. So how do we take your raising a man and me wanting a man to understand how to love and kind of put that together and make this a person that we're proud of?
Wow. That's big, man. Yeah.
That's why you need two parents. That's why you need two parents. Like, that is why there needs to be a two parent, because I can't raise my sons to be men. And I've heard women say, well, I can do it all. I can't do that. I can't teach him how to be a man. I can't teach him how to think like a man. I can teach him to be tender, to be nurturing, but I can't teach him what his father teaches him. And I wish at times I would have gotten that sooner than later in our marriage, because I think it would have helped. I didn't want to emasculate Derrick in any way. And there are times when I didn't agree with how he was, his approach, I disrespected him by visually showing that I wasn't happy. So the kids saw that, and that's how they played on the two of us, because they were like, oh, mommy don't like how he's doing that, so let me go talk to mommy, right? Yeah. And then it would be like us against Derrick, right? And so that was things that I did, and I definitely regret it. I made a lot of changes, but I wish I would have made those changes a lot sooner than what I did.
Sure. But the good news is that you guys realize it. So now I'm assuming you guys are now a united front, and the playing is a little bit less, I would assume.
Yeah,
it's more team oriented.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, team.
Yeah. Good. Very good. Very good. Yes, this is good, man. We're getting somewhere, man. Look at that face. Oh,
that face.
Oh, Ricky, what they call him. Now you have mentioned before, and I don't know if you're still doing it, Stephanie. I know you were heavy in the church as far as like doing wedding and event planning. I don't know how heavy you're in it now because you're this big corporate executive, which we didn't talk about. She out here getting to it. I'm telling y'all, man, yeah, they out here getting to it. And Derek's retired. You know what I'm saying?
Retired.
Retired, still getting to it. So
He married
so
young. That's why.
Very smart.
smart man.
It's very smart.
I'm waiting for my baby to retire me. You know what I'm saying? I keep telling her that. She get mad every time I say it. But you were in another phase in your life, and you're doing the wedding and event planning, you're doing the corporate thing, and Derek, you are looking to open up
Started
a restaurant.
Mhm.
So
Lounge.
talk to me about the conversation that happened to say, hey, I know I'm retired now, but I'm looking to now dive into this.
So before we go into that,
Yeah.
I want to add one thing as far
Yeah.
as marriage is concerned and what has kept us married for 25 years. Adapt and be patient
I like it.
because she's not the same person that I married 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And when she's going through those changes and I'm going through those changes, that can cause like, hey, this isn't the person that I, started this with. Um, Let me step back for a minute. But when you see those changes, you have to be patient and know that, hey, it's going to work itself out. So
For
I just
sure.
wanted to add that.
No, that's good.
Good.
No,
That's
that's
good.
really good, man. And I don't know how many times I had that conversation in my head too. Like, this is not the same woman you married, and you're not the same person when you got married either. So
Exactly.
you're
Exactly.
changing, you're constantly changing, you're hopefully changing for the better. You're evolving, and
And
you're
that's where the patience come in.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So I just wanted to throw that
No,
in
you're
there.
good. You good, bro.
Um, so when when I at after 30 years of working, my job was like, you can retire. And I was thinking, well, I can retire and go, and they'll give me a check every month, and I can go and do the things that I really wanted to do because something was a job that I stumbled over.
Mhm.
It afforded me a great life.
Oh,
Um,
we see it. Go ahead,
there you
continue.
go. But yeah, so I was, I never intended on being a train operator, but after 30 years, they said I could go and do what I want to do.
Mhm.
Um, Everyone that works for SEPTA aren't in that position, to do that. I was able to do that. Um, and, I always wanted to open a restaurant. But then I scaled it back now and it's a lounge. When I first met Stephanie, we were dating. I wanted to open a coffee shop,
Okay.
and she was like right there with me. Um, so fast forward, me retiring, wanting to do this lounge, she wasn't on board.
Mhm.
Okay.
I thought she was. We never had a conversation.
Mhm.
I thought she was on board, and then one day she came to me and she was like, "This is your dream, not mine." And it kind of like it took the air out of my balloon.
Meaning that you were relying on her to plan everything out because
Yeah, to help
that's
me
your realm of
along with
genius. That
exactly,
that's your realm of genius.
exactly,
So I can understand that, but continue. I'm
exactly.
sorry. I just want to make sure I was
No,
clear
no,
on it.
you're right. You're so right. I was relying on her because business. I operated a train
Sure.
for 30 years. She's business minded. She knows how to get on the computer and research things. When I was doing the business plan, or not even the business plan, trying to get the business name and the LLC, it was something that she could do in less than an hour. It took me like 3 weeks to figure it out. And she would, my desk, we share an office.
Okay.
So yeah, that's.
One of these kids they gotta leave so I can get it all.
I'm sitting over there and she's here and I'm asking her questions. She's getting frustrated with me.
No,
And
all you
I'm
hear
like,
is this, Jay.
but that's how I type. Yeah. But yeah, it was when I said it, when I asked her, it was rough.
Yeah, it was rough because, and I think again, you struggle with being a supportive spouse, right? And you're like, I gotta be supportive. Like that's what I've been supporting him all this time. Like,
Sure.
what's wrong with me? But emotionally, I wanted it for him. Like I wanted this for him, but I didn't feel that at that point in my life, I was working full time, right? And Derrick was retired. I'm like, well, why can't he do the stuff he got this time? Like, this is his dream. And like, I think, and I said it, and I said it in a harsh way. I'm like, this is your dream, not mine.
Yeah.
You need to want this more than I want this. You can't depend on me to bring this to fruition, because this isn't my dream. Now I will be your partner. I will work and do stuff with you, but like, you gotta take some of the initiative. Like, the initiative can't fall on me.
And this isn't a tit for tat, but when she started event planning, she had a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
She said to me, I think I want to do event planning.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I think you would be good at it. She comes home and says, I quit my job. I put 2 weeks in.
Oh.
I'm like, you mentioned it. We haven't talked about it. So I'm not doing tit for tat, but
No, this conversation needs to happen, because I didn't know that part.
First of all, I did do that. I did.
Yeah, she did that.
I own it. I own it. And you know what? But it was my passion, right? And I worked that thing, had 2 big contracts within the first month of leaving, because it was something that I really deeply desired and wanted for myself, right?
Sure.
Now, I'm not saying that Derrick was not going to work hard and all that. I'm just saying that while, yes, I did do that, I took the ownership of making the business that I wanted to grow.
Yeah.
I had Derrick's support, and financially and emotionally and mentally, and that is the reason that, fast forward to this this new endeavor here, while I had to get myself in check. So that was my first thoughts were that I'm gonna own it all. Like I would get irritated. I would hear him over there. I'm like, why don't you just go on SBA.gov? But I was not going to tell him. I was not going to tell him. Like, he going to figure this out.
Figure it out. Yeah.
But we doing this together though.
Yeah, but he's the planner. He should be planning out how he sees it.
But that's your lane.
No, it's not.
No. So hold on. I'm gonna play the mediator here. Stephanie, I agree with you. However, I feel like it needs to be communicated that, hey, I would prefer you do this. Now, she can then tell you, no, this is your dream. I would prefer you to do it. And then you show the initiative to do the thing. And then you come back to her and say, hey, see, this is what I did. Can you help me a little further? Maybe.
And you
but
can do that.
She does come back. If I do something, she'll come back and say, well, you should have did it this way. Well, had you did it when I originally asked you, we wouldn't have to go through this.
I understand that too.
You might have to edit this part out too.
No, we're not. We're gonna keep this. This is fine. This is normal stuff. Now, what I will tell the audience members is, do not try this at home. Okay, if you and your husband are doing really well in your finances and stuff, and you tell him that you're passionate about a dream, do not quit and then come home and tell him you quit. Don't do that, please.
That was in the early part of our marriage, and yes, but I think at the end, what I didn't verbalize that I should have verbalized in the beginning was, yes, you want to do this, I'm here for you, but I have a limited capacity of what I'm capable of doing. Let's go find you a resource that can help you. Let's go find you a class and do these different things. So, like, fast forwarding, that the first 2 years was a little bit like,
I've been playing this for 5 years.
Yeah, the first 2 years was a bit of a, I'll okay, go ahead and do it. Figure it out, right? Because I needed for him to have a vision in his head. Like, you have a vision and I have a vision, and it's not the same vision. Sure. So, I got myself together. I got myself together. And I was like, okay, let me reevaluate this. Let me figure something out. And we got involved in this program, and the program was going to be on Monday nights, and it was going to help us write our business plan. And I decided at that moment that, you know what, I'll do this. I'll come alongside him. I'll take the class with him. We'll do this together. So we did our homework together. And for 12 weeks, I invested time with him to help him and help me too, because this is definitely, it's a legacy thing, but it took some time. And I think that, again, he wasn't the same person. And I'll be honest, sometimes I would say Derrick would be a procrastinator. Like, you procrastinate, like you're wasting your time. And I never really said it. I just held it in and resented it, and then was like, I'm not helping him. He had to figure this out himself, which wasn't the right method. Now, I'm not saying that that was the right method. So when the Holy Spirit convicted me and then I started doing it, there's still times that I struggle, because there's times when I feel like Derrick is depending on me to do certain things where I would like for him to try and figure it out, or try and fail, right? Like, it's okay if you mess it up, but just attempt to do it. Like, don't be like, well, where do I go and how do I do such and such and such? Because again, this is his dream. Just like event planning was mine, this is his dream, that eventually, like, if he gets once he gets this up and running, if he can pay me my salary that I'm making in corporate America, he can hire me, and then I'll work with him.
Man, all you need is 400 grand, Derrick. That's it. That's easy. That's easy.
Plus a tip, and
what I wanted her to understand, my reasoning for doing this was to have a source of income.
I understand.
As I explained to her, I get a pension check, but that pension check doesn't grow as the economy grow. It stays at what I was just making 6 years ago. It's still there. It's fine now, but maybe 10 years from now, or even the next 4 years coming, what is that pension check going to do? So this isn't just for me, it's for us, our family. And if she can come up with another way of a means of income, because she's going to be retiring soon, but she won't get a pension. All she has is her 401k, her investments in this and that. And if it's not enough, it's not enough to sustain us. So my reasoning for wanting this lounge is to have another source of income to carry us on.
And I always understood that, right? Like, I understand the rationalization behind wanting it. It's just a matter of Derrick, wanting this and pursuing it in a way that I'm like, oh yeah, he's doing this, I'm gonna help. Like, I was feeling that he was depending on me to do so many different things, and that's where my resentment grew. Like, why are you depending on me to do everything? Like, this is what you want to do. You got to figure this out. So it was just not being aligned. It's kind of caused initially some struggles.
And
I think go ahead.
And me learning how to do the book work of it, what has taken 5 years, it could have took 3 years.
Yeah. Or one.
Or one.
Or maybe 6.
I mean, because she's in that
10.
I'm not good around the computer and all of that. Doing research. That's certainly, I know my lane.
Now, what I'll say is being somebody who didn't know about, let's say, podcasting or investing.
You learn how to
her
do it.
point, if whatever you want, you're going to learn, you're going to figure it out. And then you're going to come back and say, hey, this is what I found out. What do you think? So I think that there might have been an area of opportunity was for her to communicate to you to say, hey, no, this is in a nice way, in a soft way, in a cuddly way. Say, hey, no, this is your dream. I need you to do this. And then you communicate to her and say, hey, this is what I've done so far. That's what I'm getting. So I think if the communication was there a little bit more than, but
so business wise, I mean, I've educated myself on how to run a lounge. How to do the bartending, how to the wait staff and all of that. But I struggled when it came to the business part of it.
Sure.
And so we're learning it.
And I think that's our strong suit.
But it is not. That's not.
It seems that way because you've been in the business world that's what your strong suit is.
It's such a completely opposite, vertical. Like, it's just opposite. But there's a business acumen, I understand, you know, that you
Yep.
develop and that you have being in corporate America, and that's great. But I think saying all of that, you know, now we're on a path where, you know, there comes a time when you're like, oh, do I do this? Do I not do this? Like, you know, you struggle. And until God says no unequivocally, we're pushing through it, right? And like Derrick said, if there's another opportunity or something different, but I know that this is his heart's desire. And I'm trusting that God says in his word that he's going to give us the desires of our heart, you know, if we trust in him and believe in him and honor him. So at this point, while we might have had all these things, like it has to be a God thing with this lounge, right? It has to be, because we don't have all of the bells and whistles and finances and everything to make it happen, but the desire is there. So I think, you know, as we continue to work, and that's something, you know, going into 2025 is a real big push for us. So we won't be your rich friends in 2025. We'll be your poor friends that come hang out at your pool.
No doubt. No doubt.
We'll put all of our resources into that.
Yeah.
But I think at the end, Derrick and I, after 25 years of marriage, have been able to navigate this life through learning how to communicate, having challenges. Like challenges build your marriage. And I know people don't want to say that because marriage is not always built on good times, right? It's not always a good time.
Facts.
So these challenges kind of, as you internalize them and say, okay, how can I have done better? How can I be better? How can I be a better wife to Derrick? How can he be a better husband to me? How can we be better parents to our kids? I think that's just an evolution of being in marriage, right? And so no matter what the season, no matter what the circumstance, we're going through a really challenging time, you know, with my son, and he lost a really close friend of his. And now we have to navigate grief and coping, right? And like trying to figure out how do you help them cope with the inevitable? And they use or make choices about doing things that we are contrary to what we would want them to do, but we still love, right? So now we had to extend grace to each other in the early parts of our marriage and throughout our marriage. Now we are extending grace to our children as they navigate life, and our communication, our prayer life, like just has to get, you know, even more locked in, because challenges happen. And even at 25 years, it's not over, right? Like we still got stuff that we're working through.
Sure. Nah, that's good. That's good, man. Hey man, listen, man, this has been an outstanding time I've had with sharing with my friends here, man, my rich friends, like I said.
WJ, you are all right with me. WJ.
That's what's up. My last question to both of you, and this is going back to Seeds of Greatness, and act like I'm Sister Lisa right now. I guess because I'm a man, I'm not Sister Lisa.
Yeah.
But give me one key that you would say to help you on your marriage. Either one of you guys can go first. Give us one key.
Well, I told you adapt and be patient. That was my key.
All
right. Yeah. Steph?
One key. I think the key is to remember that your spouse is not your enemy.
Yeah.
And it's hard, you know, even when you're fighting, even when you have a disagreement, to remember that day you got married. You know, remember that day. I feel like there's so many times when I go back and I think about the day we got married, and Derrick promised me the day that we got married. I had lots of family issues. None of my family came to my wedding. Our wedding, sorry, not my wedding. Our family didn't come to our wedding. My father didn't walk me down the aisle. And so I made the decision to walk myself down the aisle. Like, I'm like, well, my dad's alive, but I don't want anybody else. Like his brother offered, his best friends offered, like they were very gracious, but I just wanted to do this by myself.
Sure.
And I remember walking down the aisle, and as I'm getting like almost halfway down, Derrick is walking toward me. Now, as the event planner in me, did not plan this. What is happening right now, right? Yeah. And so he meets me in the middle. I'm like, you know, you got that smile, like, okay, what are you doing? And, you know, he had some tears in his eyes, which he may or may not agree with. But he said, you know, I just want you to know you'll never have to walk by yourself again. Ooh. And he has maintained that for 25 years. And I know that that we're in this together. And so if you can, when you have the roughest of hardest of times, if you remember whatever was said on that day that you got married, that it still rings true in spite of the circumstances.
Man, Derrick, you the man, yo. You are the man, yo. That was, man.
Really,
Woo!
really.
Ooh. Hey, man, who's cutting onions in here, man? That was dope, man. That was really good, man. Listen, man, if I haven't told y'all, man, I love y'all, man. Y'all are,
We love you too.
man, y'all are special to me, man. I appreciate y'all doing this. I'm 100% sure this is gonna help somebody or
definitely.
a lot of somebody.
I hope so.
We hope so.
We try to be transparent.
And we don't want people to struggle. Why struggle unnecessarily?
For sure. For sure. Learn from other people's mistakes, man. I mean, I would rather learn from other people's mistakes.
Exactly.
Honestly. So yeah, thank you so much for your time and your transparency. We definitely appreciate it. We are going to sign off now. Wealth is a journey. We will see you next week. Peace.
Peace.